All right, we are ready.
Thank you, Erin. And hi, everyone. I was having a little bit of trouble getting in, but I'm here now and I'm sitting in my kitchen in Scotia, New York, which is a little west of Albany. And if you are here to learn about supporting online learner success, then you're in the right spot. Thanks for coming and having your lunch with us. I'm not sure who, oh, that's Laura Sullivan, who has such a beautiful, hi, beautiful background. Is that where you are? Okay. Well,
No,
I want to
I'm in
be
my
there.
boring office, but I want to be in Bermuda.
I would like to be there too. So anyway, it's so nice to see you all and to spend our lunch together talking about supporting online learner success. If you are I think Erin mentioned it, to pop your name and your institution and where you are at the moment in the chat so we can learn a little bit more about the folks who are here with us. I'm sure we have a lot of SUNY folks, and then we may have some SUNY friends who are from other places. So we'd love to know who you are, what your role is, where you are, and get to know you a little bit more that way. I'm the director of online teaching here at SUNY Online, and my partner in crime today is Erin Maney, who will be helping me to manage the chat and putting links in the chat for you, so you don't have to worry about, where the links are or trying to find the links. They'll be provided to you. And so, as I mentioned, we're here to talk about supporting online learner success. And we have a page on our SUNY online teaching website that Erin's going to pop in the chat for everyone. And that's there's no PowerPoint for this presentation. I'm really just going to go over the elements of this web page with you and really talk about from the perspective of the student, what typical successful online students do, what behaviors they display, so that you can understand it from the student perspective. And then we'll focus on what faculty can do to support students in developing those sorts of behaviors. And there's going to be a little bit of theory, not a ton, but I just want you to know that it's not just me saying you should do these things or these are good things to do, but there is some underlying theory around the notions of resilience, self-efficacy, and self-regulated learning strategies. So I just want you to have a little bit of a smackerel of that with your lunch so that you can know that we're really trying to understand this from a theoretical perspective as well. So here on this webpage, the first list of things is a sort of a general list of the things that faculty can do to support the success of their online, remote, or blended learners. And I've highlighted a couple of things. And good teaching is good teaching online or face-to-face. And I think if you have experience teaching online, then you know that being accessible to your learners is super important, and how you define that accessibility will be up to you. It can be virtual, it can be asynchronous, it can be online, it can be through various online modes of communication through the LMS and so forth. But making sure that students are aware that you're accessible is super important. And I think all of us who have experience know that. Encouraging self-reflection and evaluation amongst your students. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and why that is important, but looking through your online activities and seeing where you can promote some of that self-reflection and self-evaluation, and perhaps you already do some of that, but really looking intentionally about how you can cultivate that is a very good strategy. So, of course, one of the main things that faculty can do is to maintain high expectations and to communicate those expectations explicitly with their learners. Typically that's through the syllabus or through your course information docs, and really being consistent and making that as crystal clear as you can is going to really support the learners and their success. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Making sure to acknowledge your learners' success is also a really key important thing that online faculty can do. So helping them to believe that you believe in their success is really powerful. You can't underestimate the power that you have to have students believe that they can succeed because you believe they can succeed. So look for ways that you can support that sense in them, that you can help them to believe in themselves, that they can actually do this. And I'll show you a couple of examples, one example of how I do that. And then, again, this is similar to what I was just talking about helping your students to believe that they can be successful. So let's see, I want to make sure before we go on that I show you a couple of resources. This is also on the online teaching website, and this really has to do with setting the tone and communicating with your students, setting expectations and helping to clarify the context in which your learners are, so that you can understand from their perspective what their needs and challenges might be. So communicating with your learners is a really good practice that you can do, that you can use to help support their success. The more you know about them and their context, the better you can make sure that you meet their needs and support them however you can. Regular communications, of course, are super important, making sure that those are clear and explicit of how they are going to do that, and that helps in creating that sense of class community and trust and group cohesion that you really need in an online learning community, no matter what type of online you're doing. And you really need that sense of trust first before you can move. You need the social presence before you can move to the teaching and cognitive presences. So that initial set of communications, ice breaking, being available and accessible to the students is super important, especially at the beginning of the course, so that they know that you're there and that you can help them, or how they can get help. How to reach you and by what means, what your expectations are for those things, what your preferred methods are for those things, being very clear about that so that students don't have to flounder or wonder or hunt for how to communicate with you, making sure that that's real clear to them. The first resource I want to show you is one that we recently developed, and it is a template for a syllabus. And this is part of a resource that we developed as part of the work that we're doing with the new DLE Brightspace template. So this is included in those Brightspace templates. It's free and openly licensed and adaptable and customizable. And in fact, you can just look at some of the categories here and see if you're missing anything in your own syllabus. I know different campuses have different approaches to syllabus development. So this is just here FYI for your information. I want to highlight a couple of things in the syllabus. We have a basic needs statement, which if you don't have one in your syllabus, I would encourage you to consider adopting or adapting. We also have a names and pronouns element of our syllabus that I would also highly recommend that you incorporate into your own syllabus and course information materials, making your learning environment safe and for everyone to be able to express their identities and and their preferences however they like is an important part. And so by putting that in your syllabus, you can demonstrate that to your learners. And then the last thing I want to point out in this syllabus that is good, I mean the whole thing is good, you can see it's Oscar informed. Every element of the syllabus is referring to a standard in Oscar, which is our online online course quality rubric. So nothing is in here that doesn't reflect an effective practice from the online course quality perspective. But what I wanted to show you was the section on regular and substantive interaction. And I do a whole other webinar on RSI, but by putting it right in your syllabus and using that terminology, you are highlighting, number one, that you're attempting to be in compliance with that new federal regulation, and it gives the information to the students that you are accessible to them. All right, so let's go on. Oh, I had mentioned that I was going to share with you a way that I communicate to my students in my course, which is a graduate level course at UAlbany that I teach from time to time. And it's an introduction to online teaching, master's level. And most of my students are pre-service educators, K-12 educators, but I have a lot of instructional designers and some faculty that join my course occasionally too. But this is really how I try to help them see that I see them and that I want them to succeed and that I believe that they can. So you don't have to talk like this to your students if that's not who you are. I'm just showing you an example of how I do it. And for those of you who are instructional designers out there, this is, just ideas that when you're working with faculty, you can suggest to them that they communicate in some way to their students that they believe in their success. I also send a mid-semester email to my students telling them a little bit of stuff that I've learned about them that's positive and how I think they're going to change the world as a result of that. I really want them to feel like they are making a difference. They will have impact on the lives of their students. And I want them to really feel that and understand that. All right, let's go on to the little bit of theory that I promised. So self-regulated learning, I've kind of outlined it here in terms of the strategies and what traditional mechanisms are that where you can see those strategies, and then how they can be adapted or have been adapted, how we've seen they've been adapted in online instructional modalities. So the first one is forethought. Students who are successful online will demonstrate this notion, this ability to have forethought. So they'll use calendars and organizers and self-imposed deadlines, and they'll chunk their work. So online, the analogy there is that successful students log in daily and they coordinate their online and offline work, and they plan in advance for having technical problems. They'll have a plan. If my computer craps out, I'm going to this Starbucks, which is a mile away, or I'm going to the library. If I don't have internet in my house, I can pick up the internet at Panera or at the library that's in my neighborhood. So successful students do those kinds of things. They think about those kinds of things. Goal setting and performance and self-observation. Well, forethought, performance, and self-observation and self-reflection are the main categories of the strategies. So under the category of performance and self-observation, we have the strategy of organizing and transforming instructional materials. So successful typical students or face-to-face students will be really good at note-taking and outlining and underlining or highlighting things in text, or organizing things graphically, or making notes and revising notes, and they're just very good at that kind of organization and putting the materials for their courses together in ways that support their success. So in online environment, students will print out their course materials, print out their discussions, compose offline, or compose in, for example, Google Docs that auto saves so that they don't lose all their work because the LMS doesn't have an autosave. They will edit, revise and draft and edit and revise their posts. They will use the features of the LMS to sort, things so that they can see what is going on in the discussion, for example. They'll be very good at summarizing things for themselves and for others. They'll take advantage of the self-tests. So, often the self-tests that you have after a reading, for example, in an online course are set so that you can take them again and again. Successful online students will actually do that and will go back and check the things that they got wrong and read the material again and then take the self-test again. And they may use flashcards to help them remember things if it's more of, lower on the Bloom's taxonomy and it's more about remembering and understanding. So they also structure their learning environment. So in the face-to-face students, they're going to, when they're studying or working, either at school or at home or wherever, they're going to reduce distractions and they're going to figure out how to get themselves in the mindset of I'm now working on, whatever the assignment is, whatever the course is, whatever. In the online environment, the successful students will make sure that they have a good, stable, fast internet connection, and they will actually create a space for themselves, and it can either be at their home or in a library or wherever it is that they are. They're going to psychologically feel like, okay, now I'm going to class, even though they're not going anywhere. They're staying home or wherever it is that they study from. They think, okay, now I'm going to class. And so their mindset is, I'm in my class, I'm doing my work, and all of the distractions of my phone or the television or the whatever, they're kind of, sort of psychologically preparing themselves and creating a space for themselves to do their work. Help seeking, there's lots of ways that traditional students will ask for help and get help. And then similarly in an online environment, they will access the technical expertise that is available to them. They will contact and interact with their peers if they have questions, or if they just want to do some networking and connection. They will use, make study groups, for example, and they will look at other work either in whatever class they're in or in past classes or in other classes, so that they can model the good behaviors that they may see and learn from other students, from other good students. Self-monitoring and record keeping is another thing that successful students do. They'll keep records, they'll keep copies, they will track their grades online. Successful students will make backups of things. They will always keep a running list of the good posts that they've made. They'll track the assignments that they have, and they will check the grade book regularly to make sure that they are meeting and exceeding the expectations of the varied assignments, and that they're on time, and that they're seeing the feedback from the instructor. So the next category has to do with self-reflection, and that is involving self-judgment and self-reaction. So, students will use checklists and rubrics that are provided to them from the instructor. They will also implement suggestions that they receive from the instructor to improve their grades. They'll seek that out. They'll ask about how they can improve their grades and then do those things. And then similarly, in an online environment, they will use peers and use feedback from their instructor to help improve their contributions. And self-reactions, very similar. These are sort of intertwined and interrelated. It has to really do with really thinking about how they learn and how they can improve what they're learning, and what contributes to their learning, what hinders their learning. And they may not, think about that specifically how I just articulated it, but it really is something that they're thinking about. What's going to help me do better in this, and what can I do, what can I actively do that will improve, that will help me improve? And then similarly, in the online environment, the students are going to look at those three areas: technical, social, and academic performance, and seek to improve things in those areas. So so that's it for the bit of theory. Now let's look at what faculty can do specifically to support learners, on their online learners, to develop these self-regulated learning strategies. And so we're going to look at each of the strategies, and I'm just going to show you a couple of things that I want to make sure that you know about in each of these. And really, I want to invite you to come back to this resource to kind of mine it for details and information, whether you're faculty or whether you're an instructional designer. There's a lot here to know and to potentially do. I'm not saying do all of these things. I'm saying take a look and consider that goal setting and planning is a self-regulated learning strategy that we know successful students and online students will do to be successful. And so anything that you can do in your own instruction, and you may already be doing it, but with the awareness of it, you might want to shore it up in some way, or pay attention to it in some way. So I don't want to overwhelm you, but I do want you to know there's a lot of stuff here, and I want you to come back and take a look at it, and mine it for things that you may need just in time, or as you're reviewing and revising your course, or if you're working with faculty. You just want to have a sense that there is an awareness of trying to help students succeed. And this is one of the approaches that you can take to support that. All right, so let's look at goal setting. And so procrastination, I think, often is one of the things that is noticed about everyone. I mean, everyone's been a procrastinator at some point in their life. But in an online course and in an online teaching and learning environment, if you procrastinate, things are going to go south pretty quickly. So trying to help learners develop this ability to goal set and to plan is going to help them to be more successful. So, some of the strategies that the learners the successful learners exhibit are, as I mentioned earlier, things like daily logins, and making sure that they understand where they have to be online and what they have to do offline, anticipating technical challenges, and so forth. And so what faculty can do, I have a couple of suggestions here: reminders, a tip of the day, making sure that you have very good and clear community guidelines to support that sense of online learning community, and a community that cultivates this sense of support and success. So I have a couple of things to show you in this one. This is a really cool what is this called? This is called like a tutorial. And it's from Penn State. And I found this resource. I'm going to show you a couple of them from this site because I thought they were particularly good, and really relevant to the different topics that we're talking about in self-regulated learning strategies. So there's a bunch of resources here. And I'm not saying just give this link to your students. You can look through here, and maybe there's other resources you could find yourself, and have them complete one of these time management activities as part of their icebreaking and welcome and course orientation activities, right? So it's just an idea. And then there were two online tools that I wanted to share with you. Now, you need to check with your institution and check with your LMS. You may want to keep everything within your LMS, and that's totally fine. But there are a couple of tools that I've seen faculty use that are cool. And so I wanted to mention them to you. And this is called Remind, and you may be familiar with it. And the other one that I really like is called Remember the Milk. And and it's just a reminder app, right? And one of the things, that I think can really help students is to get texts either from their LMS or from their instructor about important things. Now, you don't have to text them about everything, but if there's an assignment due, or if there is a quiz due, or if there's something you really, really want them to know or do, then a quick text, not a full-blown course announcement, but a quick text will capture their attention and point them to that, to something that you want them to know or do. All right, so be sure to check with your institution, because your LMS may have ways to set up automated communications similar to this, but I just wanted to share it with you. I've seen faculty use them. All right, let's look at organizing and transforming instructional materials, the next self-regulated learning strategy in our list. And so, successful students are really, online students are really good at managing and organizing their instructional materials to optimize it for their context, whatever that might be. And they develop strategies to manage that. And so we talked about this a little bit already. So let me show you, these are some examples of what faculty can do down here below. So here is a note-taking tutorial, which I think is pretty good. And so again, similar, this is also from Penn State, that same site. This is note-taking is a really interesting thing, and not every, there's ways to do it better than others. And so helping students to learn those strategies, especially students who may not have developed those strategies in high school, helping them to learn how to do that better. And I'm thinking about first-gen students, maybe community college students, and even, traditional, four-year college students may not have developed the skills necessary. So this is a really nice tutorial. And then there are a couple of tools that I wanted to share with you that also help with this category of organizing and transforming your materials. So depending on the level of your students and your own tolerances, I'm not saying you have to use any of these tools, but there might be relevant rationale for incorporating some of these tools into your instruction and into the tools that you use with your students to help them do some of the things that you're requiring them to do in your course. And so if they are writing research and need to organize the citations, for example, for their research papers or projects, you might want to use something like Zotero. Hypothesis is a web annotation tool. You can annotate and collaborate on those annotations with students. And then the other tool, that's the accessibility statement for Hypothesis, just in case anyone was wondering. The other tool that I love is called Diigo, very similar to Hypothesis, but it has some additional tools that make me more effective in many ways, because it has all these additional features. In addition to highlighting and annotating the web, it also allows me to make things like link rolls and put sticky notes on things for students to see. So this is for example, this is my group for my course. All of my students that I've ever had are in this group. So I build a sense of community across semesters with students who continue to add resources to this shared annotated bibliography of resources around online teaching and learning. And so, yeah, I mean, I love this tool. It's one of those tools that if it went away, I would be seriously bummed. And then here's a blog post that I wrote a long time ago, because I've been using Diigo since a long time. I used Delicious before that. That's how old I am. So I really love it, and I explain I make my students use it. And then here is like a recipe for how I use social bookmarking in my own online instruction. I explain what it is, why I do it, and then how I do it. And all of the help resources are here. So if you're interested in using social bookmarking in your instruction to support, well, for many reasons, but one of them here is to support helping students organize and transform their materials. So so all of those resources are going to be there for you to take a look at in greater depth and detail, you know, tonight when you go home. All right, so let's look at the next one, which is structuring the learning environment. Successful students, both online and traditional students, will arrange their settings to make learning easier for them, to make sure that they're able to work in a way that is most effective and most efficient and successful. And we talked about that already a little bit. I think it's important to help students to understand where it is that they might have gaps in their readiness to be an online student. And then I want to recommend that faculty not make any assumptions, because you know what they say about that, right? It's really important. And we saw a lot of this come really clearly in focus during COVID. There were a lot of assumptions. And I think many, if not all of us, had experiences that you can, you know, share, that where an assumption got in the way of something, and all of a sudden it's like there and real, and it's like, oh no, I had no idea, right? So one of the things, I wanted to share with you the main resource from that Penn State tutorial site. There's a ton of resources here. So I just picked out a couple of them to share with you. But, you know, test anxiety, time management, you know, cooperative learning. And each of these has a little tutorial with it, with resources similar to what I've shown you already. So the one I wanted to show you for this particular strategy is the Are You Ready tutorial. And many campuses have their own online readiness tutorials that are done before the student becomes an online student. Some campuses have others that are incorporated into the courses as part of the ice-breaking activities. So you take a look at this. If you have an instructional designer, you might want to talk about it with your instructional designer to see what all else the institution is recommending for these types of things. But I want to make sure that you see this particular one and can look at it, you know, for additional resources and information. We're in this category of organizing your space. And so I found this article that I thought was super, that really talked about, you know, what good online and, you know, good students do. They create a quiet space. They make sure that it's effective. They make sure it's comfortable. They organize their materials. They schedule the time. They stay organized in their online materials. They establish a regular routine. They're systematic about that. They create or avail themselves of the support systems that exist. Those are things that good students do online and offline. And so the more that you can reinforce and support those strategies in your students for this particular strategy, the more successful and the more successful the students will be. All right, did I cover everything? Yes. Let's go on to the next one, which is help seeking. And help seeking is, again, we talked about it a little bit already, that where successful students in whatever modality are going to avail themselves of those help resources that exist online, technically, from their instructor and from their peers. And so what faculty can do to support this is to make sure that everything is very crystal clear in terms of expectations and instructions and how students can get help, and from whom and where. For example, in my course, I have a space that is called Ask a Question. It's just a discussion forum, and anyone in the course can ask a question and anyone in the course can answer it. And I have set it up so that's understood very clearly, that anyone can ask and answer a question in there. So that's promoting student to student interaction. It's promoting students expressing their teaching presence. If you answer a question of another student, that's teaching presence. So, and I'm also in there as the instructor, so I will also go in there. I also have a talk with the professor discussion group, so they can talk specifically to me if they want to. And there's other ways that they can do that, but I have that one dedicated discussion. So you be explicit, you want students to feel comfortable, you offer office hours in whatever modality you are using. You make sure students know they can help each other out. You make sure they know how to get technology help. And let me show you, you want to think about, again, this is a thing about not making assumptions, right? And here's where first gen issues and challenges kind of reveal themselves, in my view. And that issue of assumptions comes into play. And I want to share this resource with you that I found that really is about the challenges that first generation college students face. And I want to highlight the things. And oh, by the way, these highlights that I have here, I created with Digo. That's the bookmarking tool. So this is a public website, and I created this highlight. If you go to this page, you won't see these yellow things. And the other thing I wanted to show you is here, for example, I left myself a sticky note. Can you see that? I'll move it up. I left myself a sticky note. This particular one is, first generation students feel guilt sometimes imposed by their families because they have, competing life priorities and competing family issues. They may feel shame because they're first gen students. They may feel confused because they don't understand all of the acronyms and they don't understand all of the processes, and they have no one in their family to help them, to guide them, to understand, oh, this is what a bursar is, and this is where you go, right, to do that. So in confusion, I wanted to highlight the fact that they don't ask questions. You may assume that if they don't know or understand something, they'll ask. But first gen student typically won't ask because they don't want to appear stupid, and they don't want to appear like they don't know something. They already feel some shame and some guilt about all the stuff they don't know or don't have. They may mispronounce things, for example, if they've never heard it said, they've just always read it. So if that happens one time, they may never say something again because they're just, they just don't want to, they can't. They may feel anxiety, and that anxiety may be academic, social, or financial. They may not be as prepared as other students. Everything must be overwhelming. And they may have issues with isolation that might stem from financial issues, or might stem from not feeling like they're in the in-group. Maybe there's not other people like them there. And they may face other issues of bias and discrimination. So I just want to make sure that you consider this when thinking about this particular strategy, which is about help seeking. Don't assume that everyone is going to avail themselves of the help just because you post a link. And you can't do everything, but having awareness of it is really important. All right, let's go to the next one, self-monitoring and record keeping. this was about tracking your grades and making sure to regularly keep on top of your grades. This is a strategy that good students in any environment will do. The one thing that I want to make sure to mention in this particular one is the use of rubrics. If you don't currently use rubrics, I would highly recommend that you talk with your instructional designer or use some of the resources here to start looking at how you might create rubrics. It'll make you more effective and more efficient in terms of grading, and it will really, really, really help your students in understanding how to improve their performance. So let me show you the resources. Here is a page that's full, chock-a-block full of authentic online assessment resources and strategies. And there's a section here on rubrics. And so I want to point you to that section to take a look at it so that you can get more informed about what rubrics are and how you can use them for any activity that you have in your course. And I'd highly recommend that you work with an instructional designer who probably knows how to use your learning management system and the features in your learning management system to create these rubrics. Takes a little bit of time to set up, but once they're set up, it is amazing how effective it'll make you in terms of returning work to students in a timely fashion, how you can provide rich feedback in an automated way, and how it can make you more, both efficient and effective. So you save time and you're much more effective. And then from the student perspective, the benefits are just extraordinary. I just really would like to recommend that you, if you're not yet using rubrics, that you, check with your instructional designer and look at your LMS to see what tools it supports. This is an example of my blog, my discussion grading rubric, just so that you can see an example. On this page, there are other examples of rubrics, lots and lots of examples of rubrics, and there's, if you just Google rubrics, you'll find tons of information. I'm not saying create a rubric just like mine. I'm just showing you mine, but it's just as an example. All right, let's go to the next strategy of self-reflection. We talked about this already a little bit. This is about helping students to understand how to leverage metacognitive reflection so that they can better understand themselves. They can better understand what helps and hinders their learning. And good students do this. They don't know the word metacognitive reflection or self-reflection, but they think about it. They think about, what am I learning? What is helping my learning? What is hindering my learning? How can I improve my learning? And they take actions with each of those questions. So the way that I support metacognitive thinking and learning in my course is I have my students do a reflection blog post for every module in my course, and I create guiding questions for them. But I want you to think about this. So here is a podcast from someone in our SUNY community, Judith, who I love and is a wonderful member of our online instructional design community, as well as an online instructor at Genesee Community College. And this is a great podcast. If you're not familiar with the T for Teaching podcast from our friends at Oswego, John Kane and his colleague, whose name is Rebecca, I can't remember her last name. I would recommend tuning in, look for a topic that you're interested in this podcast. It's super, super good. So here is a blog post that I wrote about why do I have to blog, that I wrote for my students. I'm helping, they hate blogging. But I love their blogs, and I try to get them to think about blogging and how it's helpful to them and to me. And my hope is that they will persist with that activity after my course. Not all of them do, but some of them do. And then I have a little recipe for you about metacognitive blogging. And so similar to the other one I showed you, I talk about why I did it. I talked about how I did it and what the tools are that I use. And then I have a list of all of the discussion prompts that guide my metacognitive journaling activities for each of my modules. So you can take a look at it as an example, and some tools and some, reasons and information about how to do that. All right, let's go to the next one, self-efficacy. This is that notion of helping students to believe that they can be successful as a student, as a learner, as an online learner. I really don't want to, I don't want you to underestimate the power of this. And maybe if you have younger children, you will remember what it was when they thought or believed that their teacher believed in them, that they did something that was good. The amount of confidence and the amount of sense of self efficacy is just astounding to me, and it doesn't go away. You can see it really clearly in younger children, but in adults and in learners and in adults, I think for the rest of our lives, when someone believes in you, it has tremendous power to help you to believe in yourself. So you want to do that by creating a supportive online environment, and you want to model those behaviors. You want to acknowledge and encourage students to develop tolerance for challenges. This really thinking, if you're familiar with the notion of growth mindset and fixed mindset, this really is what this is about. In a fixed mindset, people think that intelligence, or that you're born with it, and if you don't get something quickly, that you're not good at math, right? That's fixed mindset. In growth mindset, you believe that problems are challenges, that if you can't do something, it's because you haven't practiced it enough yet. And so faculty and teachers can help support students to believe that just because they don't do well the first time they try something doesn't mean they are always going to fail at it, that they need to continue to practice. And all right, so let's look at some of the things that I have for you. I love this page, and I want to make sure you get it because I just updated it. When you are thinking about the design of your online course, you want to make sure that you're attending to the amount of time that learners are engaging in the activities of your course. And that is both online, when they are either with you or doing stuff online asynchronously, or when they're offline reading your reading assignments or doing the papers that they have to do. So you want to first make sure you understand the total number of hours that you want to shoot for in a 3-credit undergraduate course. And I have some breakdowns here of numbers of hours per week, both for 15-week courses, 8-week courses, and 3-week courses for undergraduate. And then I also did it for graduate courses. And so I just want you to have a sense of the numbers of hours that you are planning for. You can work with your instructional designer to help you with this. And then I wanted to share with you the super cool resource from Wake Forest University. It's a workload estimator. And so you can see here, I've already plugged in some data. It's a 15-week course. They read 30 pages per week. There's a lot of words on those pages. I'm going to up the concepts, and you see it changed over here, right? The purpose is to understand writing assignments. There's a lot of them. Posts per week, there's 3. And then there's some other assignments in this course, and there's a number of live meetings in this course as well. And then down here, you can see the hours of independent work and the contact hours. So you can use this to help you figure out how much you're having the students do, and if it's in line with these recommendations here. And if it's way over the weekly hours, you're going to want to tweak that a little bit, right? And it's going to vary if it's undergraduate to graduate, right? But what you don't want to do is to create a course and a half, or to put everything and the kitchen sink into your course, to overwhelm the students, to overwhelm yourself, and to make it so that it's not doable. It's not actually physically doable. If you have 85 hours that in a week that a student has to do, and they also work, there's just not enough hours in the day to accomplish that. So you really need to pay attention to that. All right, that's the estimator. Oh, and here some info on mindset. So it's a infographic I found, and this is probably created by a K-12 instructor. But I really liked it because it really shows in a lot of detail the different things that can be done to support this notion of growth mindset and this culture of growth mindset in a course. It's adaptable to the college environment, to the online environment, for sure. All right, let's look at goal orientation and interests and attributions. And for this, I wanted to go into more depth on growth mindset. So let me just run over to those resources. This is another set of resources. I think it's 25. No, that's 25 ways. I think all of these are just really, really good and adaptable and relevant both to any type of instruction and any type of learner at any age. So I just wanted to give you a list of those 25 strategies, or 25 ways to develop. Then the other one, this is another one. This is how to build a growth mindset. And so in terms of the differences between fixed and growth, just to help put a good fine point on that, effort, there's a difference in how with a fixed mindset you look at effort from with a growth mindset. It's really, like we were talking about earlier, in growth mindset, you really see any kind of problem or any kind of failure as not the stopping point because you're just not capable, but as an indicator that you need something else and you need to practice, or you need to go keep doing it in order to, and that takes effort. Yep, in fixed mindset, you don't want to make mistakes, but in growth mindset, it shows you that you're learning. So yeah, take a look at this resource. There's a lot of good information here, and I think it will help to build awareness about this difference in your own self. Because like many of us, I think we grew up in a fixed mindset kind of an environment. So it's good to kind of build awareness and kind of self-check of where you actually are. I grew up thinking I wasn't good at math. I just wasn't good at it. And so as a parent, I never, ever, ever said that to my child, not even once. I always told her I loved math. And I always told her that, when she made whatever mistakes in any of the things that she did, that she just needed to practice. So you're never good at something the first time. All right, so here is a resource that I want to make sure to point you to about supporting access, equity, and equality in online learning. There's a lot of stuff here, and I do a whole session just on this. And I'm working on a project right now with Oscar to infuse or to have a lens of DEI over the Oscar rubric. So I just want to, make sure that you know that this resource is here and that this resource can be leveraged, and this information can be leveraged for this particular self-regulated learning strategy. There are a bunch of things here that I think that you could absolutely use and adapt to your own instruction. There's tools, there's resources, there's guides. So I'm going to invite you to mine this and maybe come back sometime when I do a webinar or we do a webinar just on this particular resource to learn more. And I think I hit the end, and look, it's 12:44 and we have like, what, 6 minutes for questions. I want to make sure that I know Erin is there helping me to put links in the chat for you, and to help me also with managing any of the questions. You can also unmute if you want, and just ask a question also. Who has the first question?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. There weren't any in the chat other than a couple about what options are available in Brightspace that I was able to answer. So for anybody that has a question, you can now unmute or you can type in the chat. And I'll put the links to all the content and the link to where you can find the recording in the chat as well.
Yeah, you know, I'll wait for some questions, but while we're waiting, I'm sure Erin is going to post the link to this, which is where you can find the recordings of all of the workshops that, or the webinars that we're going to be doing this this semester and previous semesters. And I do want to invite you to join.
Would you be able to send the links to our emails for those of us who registered?
Well, I have more people who registered than who are actually on this call, but if you would like to drop your email in the chat, I can certainly email you directly.
The other thing you can do is just in the chat, if you click, you know, where you type, there's 3 little dots on the right-hand side. If you click on that, it'll, and click save chat, it'll actually save the chat for you. So you'll get all those links that way as well. I wanted to share with you our online networking community, and this community is a Facebook group and it's open to anyone regardless of whether you're in SUNY or not. And so I'd like to invite you to join our online networking community and continue to talk about things like, you know, supporting online student success and online course quality and all of the different things that are of interest to folks who are either instructional designers or online instructors or anyone who works with in the online teaching and learning environment. For our SUNY folks, we have a Yammer group. So this is just for SUNY. And if you're not yet in Yammer or you're not aware of the SUNY online teaching group, I want to invite you to join that as well. And then for all of everyone, I'd like to invite you to become, if you're not already, to become an online SUNY Online Fellow. And for SUNY, we have all different kinds of roles that you can select from. If you're not from SUNY, there is a role for you called Friend of SUNY. So I invite all of you to select your role, the ones from SUNY. The easiest one is the one interested. It's just asking for your email and your institution. And then same with the Friend of SUNY. And then we'll be able to send you information on other webinars like this directly, and we'll be able to share other tools and resources and stuff we do, and continue the conversation through that kind of, you know, networking with you. That's the Friend of SUNY form. It's just asking for your name and your organization and your role. And then, oh, bonus resources for people in specific disciplines. So here's the link to that. I have all kinds of resources for things that are specific to disciplines. And then there is a collaborative, there's a collaborative document here that you can actually contribute to. If you're in one of these disciplines, you can actually type on one of the, you know, it's a Google Doc, so you can add your favorite resources to that. And then I think that's it. Any questions since I stopped? I'll go back to the resource here, the page, the main page. All right.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for all this. I feel like it was very reinforcing for me because I use a lot of these things and you gave me like great new resources and things that I haven't tried, but it just makes me feel like, oh, good, I'm kind of on the right track here. So I just want to
Awesome.
say thank you. And I never met anyone who talks faster than me, so that's cool.
Laura, are you an instructional designer
Yes, at
Awesome.
Nassau Community College.
at Nassau? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you know Deb Spiro then?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. We love our friends at Nassau and everywhere else too in SUNY, but yeah.
I'm new to the DE team, but I've been at Nassau for 30 years.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
In different capacities, but yes.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I see people popping thanks in the chat. I really appreciate everyone coming and sharing your lunch and learning and talking and sharing all of the things that you may have in the chat. And I see their hope. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you at our next one. Erin, what's